So SQL data reader, which we have seen till now, where we can actually handle get the results and handle through iterate and actually get the details, and we can process the data well. The same way we have other classes too, where you can actually get the result and process. But before that, why do we need, as we have reader already, right? Why do we need other classes? So SQL data reader. So this is something which is completely connection oriented. Now SQL data reader always requires connection to be active and open till we actually reach the complete data source. So in between, if you get the data after executing, right, we got the reader, and if you close the reader, close the connection first and then start reading, right, it won't allow to read. Why? Because SQL data reader is always works in this way. Let's say you have some 1,000 rows in a database, right? And what it will do is it will actually have a limit of, let's say, 10. So it will get first 10 rows, right, and it will be active. Now, as you are reading 10 rows, right, let's say you have completed 10th row and then you are moving to the next row, and we need 11th row, then what it will do, it will actually trigger, um, it will actually trigger through the connection, and we'll get next 10 rows, which means from 11 to 20, it will again get it from the connection, and then it will it will give us the data. Now in this way, it will actually continue to get data through the connection. So that's the reason why if you close the connection before retrieving the data, right, then you won't be able to read the complete data part, whatever you are looking for. That's the reason why our SQL data reader is connection oriented. Right? So this is the reason why sometimes you may need some classes which can hold data, and even after you close, right, even after your close data or connection, right, we should be able to read data and process them. Which means we should need a class. We need a class which provides independent of the connection, whether you close it or not, right. It will actually retrieve the complete data set, right, complete data in a disconnected mode, and provides access to complete data even if you close connection. Now for that we actually have SQL data adapter. So where we will be using dataset to actually read data, right? So SQL data adapter and datasets, these two classes are we'll be using in connection, where they actually connect, get the data, complete set of data. They won't get a partial data. If there are 1,000 rows, it will actually retrieve all the 1,000 rows, and it will fill it on a dataset class. So this is what happens, right? So if you want connectionless disjointed mode, then you can actually go with the SQL data adapter, where you can actually fill the complete data into the dataset. Now it works in it works for everything, whatever we have seen in data reader. It works for a single table return. I mean the single dataset return. It will work. It also works for a multiple data which actually returns, right? Everything it actually works. The main ingredient of dataset, how it actually saves in data is it saves data in data table class, right? Each and every dataset which actually gets returned through the query, right, will be saved to data table. Now, if there are multiple queries, which if that stored result or a static query using, then it doesn't matter. Even if it returns four different tables, it will create different data table instances in one data set, right? And it will load all the data in something called data rows and data columns, right? So this is how data will be actually spread across SQL data adapter and the data sets. So let's see an example. Okay, so which part, Shravanti? Which part do you do? Data. Okay. So SQL data adapter is mainly, it can actually work on disconnected, right? So SQL data adapter doesn't need active connection to get the data. So what happens is whenever we run or execute query, right? And if you are using SQL data adapter, it will actually get the complete data if we are actually fetching our query, whatever we are writing the query, right? If it actually returns 1,000 rows, right? Then all the 1,000 rows will be retrieved at once, right? And then it will be saved into different data tables in a data set. If you are actually getting different data sets, right? And those tables, like you can actually ask a question that why do we have a data table concept in data set? Like if you remember, that in our last class we have seen that you have multiple queries, right? You can actually have multiple queries in a same column, right? Let's open this. So you can see that now we have written two different queries, right? Which means it will return data in form of rows and columns, but it will be of two different sets, right? One is with this set, and second one is this with this set. Which means we have our class should be capable of holding two different table sets, which our data set is capable of, right? And SQL data adapter is a medium which gets the data and fills into data set, right? So these two work in conjunction with each other, right? We normally get the data through adapter and we fill it in data set. I'll show you how to do that, then you'll understand. Now, how to fill? If there are multiple data set returns which we are getting, then it will create each data table for each set. Now for this one data table, and if you have more queries, so different data tables for others, right? It will be saved in data sets. And we will be using data sets to retrieve the data, to read tables and their rows and their cells. Fine? Was that okay, Shravati? Was that your question? Is it understood now? So let's look into a simple example of how we can actually call this. Let's look for a simple query and then we'll go over multiple data sets. Right? So here, let me create a new class. Let me call it as a adapter. Some class name. Here, I want my main class. So here, what I do, I'm going to take. Let's take simply this example which we have written. So everything, connection, closing connection, and everything will be same, right? So let's use system or data. So here, this is the connection part which will be same, and let's take the same query, right, which we are considering over here, right? and reading part and everything we'll see. So let's remove this part. Uh, from the data reader. Now we have a active connection code, and we have a code to close the connection. Now let's see how we can actually get the data using adapter. Now for adapter we have SQL data adapter, right? So let me call this AD adapter is equal to new, and again for SQL adapter we have overridden functions, overridden methods we have. So let's use the query one where I want a query, and let's give the connection. Right. So this is where we have a query and connection. Now just give a look at whatever we used to do in command, right? If you remember, while using SQL data reader, right? So we used to use a command, right? And this command is something which is going to take a connection stream, and it will create a execute command for the query, and then we used to get the result directly. But here the situation is different. We are using adapter directly, right? And we are trying to fetch the data through this connection for this query, and that will be completely will come up to this query. Right? Now this is a simple query we have, and now so how do we get the data? How do we get the data is something. So before that we need something called data set. Now here you can see we are not getting the instance of data set. Why? Because data set is common for it is not specific to your SQL client. You can actually have data set for different type of providers. Now data set actually comes under system.data itself, right? We know that under data we have many things like Oracle provider, right, or OLDB, or we have so many, right? So that's the reason why you can actually use a data set for to hold data which is being retrieved from any provider as such. Now you can see we have a data set. Fine. Let me call TS is equal to new data set. So I've created my data set is ready now. What I have to do, how to fill these data sets, right? Because my adapter is a medium which can get data, and it is capable of filling in the data set, which means I can do that in AD, which is adapter dot fill. Right? Now you can see there are overridden methods. I will keep these, which is my adapter. Whenever I call fill, right? Now this method will actually execute the query through this connection, and then it will fill the data set. That's what happens when you call this method. Right? Now with these three statements, yes, you are fetching the complete data into a data set, in one shot, right? Which means after filling in the data set, right, you don't need connection to be active because your data set is an exclusive set now. Right? Now let's see how to read a data set. Now as I said, data set is nothing but a combination of tables, right? And each table will have multiple rows and columns, right? Which means you can see in my data set dot we have an option called tables, right? Which means you have to go to each row variable, right? Now you have something called dot tables. Now when I say this is a set of tables, right, which means all the tables will be arranged in some array, right? So let's say the first table will be in 0th index, right? And now for this table we will have something called rows. Now this will actually give you all the rows, right, which they have. Now let's write, and for each condition, for each loop to get the data. Now let's say here I'll take, I'll do one thing to be more simple. Let's take a data table instance. Let me call it dt is equal to data rows. So till here, what we have done, we have taken as a data table whatever we have. We know that we are running a simple query, and we always know that there will be only one table, right? And we got that table into it. Now what we have to do, we have to loop through the data table rows. How can we do that? Now for each, we can use this for each row, right? Obviously we have to iterate through each row in the table. Now we have something called data row. Now data row is the one, the data table contains different data row objects, right? Let me call it as row in what collection? My table dot rows, right? So in this row collection, dt dot rows, I will get each and every row, right? And this row will contain some column, right? So that column, let's iterate through that column again. We have for each, we have data column. You can see we have each data column. Let me call it as column. It's called as all in dt dot columns. Right? Now, why do we need columns? Obviously, just a row will not suffice, right? You got a row from tables, and in that row you have to read each column, right? That's the reason why we do it. Now let's print that console dot write. Now how to read? Now you have a row instance which is row in my row, right? Now for column we have to give, either you can give, so you can see that you can give a direct data column, or you can give some index like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or you can give a direct column name, and there are many, right? Now let's give call, because we already have a data column, right? Which column you want to read. Now this is how we read. We actually moved into very granular level of data set. We got a data set. Now data set is a combination of tables. We got our table because we know that we lifted one data set, and we got we know that it will be in a first table, and we call the data table. And for data table, we know that it is a combination of data rows and data columns, right? So we'll actually loop on. The first loop will be for data rows, right? And the next loop will be for data columns, and we actually loop. So this is how we can read the data. So once this is done, let's write console.write line so that it will move to the next line. Right. So each row we are printing in one row, right? So whenever it completes and goes to the next row, let's print in the next row. So let's run this and see how it works. So entry point. So there is a main. Let's make a static. And do we have static for anything else? Okay. Let's rebuild the solution. You can see here, right? We are getting a different, name and the roll number here. And let's give some space if you want. Let's say after writing this, let's say I am giving some space. Now you can see in much better way. So we got a select student name and roll number, right? Now you can see you got a student name and roll number, in different rows. This complete set is a data table, and where you can see each row you are reading with each column. Now, the first one is your data column of type student name, and then you have a roll number. Now this is how we can read our data set, right? Let's move to the next step where we want to read multiple queries. Now let's say I also have one more query called select star from students, which means it's clear that it will return two different data sets, right? It will return two different tables, right? Which are not related or exclusively different, right? Code will be saying that you are actually querying the database using your SQL data adapter, and you fill it into data set. Now this filling part will actually is a tricky part. Now here, for each of the query, right, whenever it returns a table or a data, right, it will fill in a separate table. Now if you run it now, right, now you can see that this first table is you're getting data only for the first table, right? Because we haven't handled it yet, right? We know that there will be one more table in index 1 also, right? So that part we haven't seen. Now how can we do that? Now either you have to create one more data table. You can see here one more data table, let me call it DT2, right? Is equal to, we have dataset dot tables of 1, right? You can do it this way, and then iterate through one more time, iterate through different rows. Or let's do it in a other smart way. Let's iterate my data set itself, like data table, where let me call it as DT in, let's say I have dataset dot tables. I want to iterate. I don't want to take anything as individual. Rather, what I'll do, I'll actually connect nodes like this. So I'm iterating through each table, right? Where my dataset.tables, I'll iterate through each table. So it comes to DT, and then it will iterate through each and every row and column. Again, it will move to the next table, and then, right? So here we'll do something called console.writeLine of table. Reading table. Let me just give it so that we know that we are actually reading some table, right? And then we do that. Now let's take that also. Now you can see, right? Reading table. Now first one was student and roll number, and second one was select star, which means you get everything, right? You can see you get a roll number, name, your address, right? You have many more things. To show it, let's decrease the space. Yeah, now you can see that it's a bit new manner. Right, where you have all the data retrieved. Now you can see that we are able to read all the tables, all the data tables, right? And we were able to actually keep it in a single. Right. Now this is how we retrieve data to data table, in turn through data set, in turn through SQL DataAdapter, where it actually works in a way that it is dismantled. And whenever you are working on a dismantled way, it's very important to keep in mind that this is something which is a very heavy process to read data. If you really require, to keep things in dismantled manner and process data, then you can go to this. Otherwise, if you don't have uh, if you don't have much requirement to actually read data in a distributed way, then always try to use SQL data reader, which is lighter, and as and when you want something, right? Let's take an example like you have uh, something called you're reading data. Let's say there are 1,000 rows, right? And let's say you're looking for a particular row whose, I mean, in that whose name is, you're looking for some guy whose name is so and so. Let's say you haven't done that inquiry, but you are looking for some combination where you have to retrieve data, right? So there, if you take data reader, right? Let's say you got a matching row at 7 itself, then you'll exit the loop, right? Now, whenever you're looping on your data reader, let's say you got something at second row itself, right? Then what we'll do, we'll actually read the data till that point, and then we'll exit. Let's say we'll come out of the data reader. Now, which means you're saving much of bandwidth, right? You will actually save much of bandwidth first, and second thing, you are not actually retrieving all 1,000 rows, right? In first 10 rows itself, you are actually reading the data and concluding that yes, you got the data set. Now, in that case, if you choose data adapter and data set, right, now obviously it's going to be heavy, and it is not the optimized way of coding, right? So a situation is very important, and and something where where exactly you're going to use uh, this part, right? Either the SQL data reader or adapter is something which is very fine. So this is about the ADO libraries and different things which we have in ADO. So any question till now, you can take a simple. Now the assignment will be, so let's say I want you guys to build a simple, like again a college application type. There requirements will be, it should accept student details, you insert, and in student details you should take name, you should take and roll number is something which you should then generate automatically, right? Address, right? And let's say contact, email, right? So these are the details, and let's say parent name. So these are the details which are primary details of student details and all, right? And then, so once you have this, so I should have a service. So this is something which is to accept details. And the next one is I should have a service to get the student details based on, let's say, roll number, or I'll give a part, or I should be able to get a parent name, or it can be combination also of an email, right? I should be able to read data from a student's table, right? Now, so you have got this, right? There should be one more table which is related table to get student, right, academic report, where it will have which section he is in, or section and class he is in, right? So what is the percentage, right? You can take a simple one. What is the percentage of that academic year we have, and these two tables should be related. Now here, whatever you have a roll number, right? Whatever you have, this is something which in the database part. Important to understand. Here you also have a simple roll number. That's it. No name and nothing. Just roll number. Where these two, wherever I get a roll number, I should be able to get the details. Simple as that. Right? Percentage, and let's say remarks. Right? I should be able to do remark. And let's say leaves. Let's say how many leaves here. Taken. Leaves taken, and that's simple. Right? Now, so the application, the simple app should be able to accept all these, mainly student details, let's say, right? And then it should also accept academic report, let's say, academic report to me to feed, and these two things should go into two different tables, not into one table, right? And this is something which is a admin job, right? Where student details I can actually feed the data into student details, and then retrieval part. I may retrieval. I want two different things again. I want the student details based on roll number. When I say student details based on roll number, let's say mainly I'm looking for, let's say, name of the student, right? Address of student, and let's say contact, right? Parent name, right? Section, percentage, right? And remarks and leaves, right? So if I give roll number, right, I should get all the details where I'm actually reading it. Right? I should be able to read these things as such. Right? Now try this application. So we'll do the same application even through our web application too. Right? Try this out. So this is something which you can try. Fine then. So let's see how we can actually call a stored procedure into our SQL DataAdapter. Right? Now it is again the same. So you can actually have the stored procedure called directly into your data adapter, where if you don't want to give a static code. Right? Now this SP needs some inputs, right? Now when we were using our direct, we have used it in this here, right? So when we were using command, right, we had something called command type we have to mention, because it's very important to mention command type, otherwise it will take it as a normal text. And then for this command we used to give the parameters, right? Parameters like different parameters, roll number and all. Now how can we give this same, or do we need to give that to adapter or not? Yes, it is very important to give to adapter. Now how? Now you can see even in adapter, right, we have something called select command. In adapter, again internally it works in it takes help of command and then it will execute. So for that you have to select command. What type of command? Like you have command type here, and you can say command type .sp. So first. This will mention that whatever text or query part you're giving is a complete stored result. And then you have something called parameter, right? Again you have to go to the command and you have something called parameters. Now you can see in command whatever we gave, command.parameters.add value, command.command depth, right? Now this command is nothing but your SQL command. You can see this returns, where SQL command returns, select command returns SQL command. You can see on the mouse over, right? Your adapter uses internally a command to run a query and then get a data, which means command is common for you. You don't have to exclusively, create a command for data adapter and run. It will take command internal, right? And now here you can see you have add value in it. Again the same. Now, you can copy the roll number and put it here because I'm looking for this is my first parameter which I have. And now let's write down the next one, which is my name. Right. Name, let's give right. Now this is how we call SP to adapter, where whatever you want to give, you can see from here everything is again same. So from command type and parameters are all right. Now these are same for even your normal SQL command also. Right, where you can see parameter command type, right? That's how you can run. Now if you run this right, but we know that this student details also, the get student details SP also returns a multiple data set, right? So which means this complete code holds good here. Now if you run this, you'll get a same data set out. Right? So that's how it's going. And not only for the multi data set, let's say I don't have this. Let me just comment this part and run this SP. Now you can see I've commented this and I've actually executed, so which means it will return only one data set now, right? Now let's go back and run this program. See? So as I've made my program generic that whatever I'm getting, I'm just iterating through that table. If I have one table, I can actually read one table. That's it. Nothing else, right? Now in that way, we are actually using it. Now we have two different sets now. Uncommented, run this. Now we get it. It all depends on how you work. Right, so this is about a complete ADO document libraries, how we can actually use in different ways, how to connect and how to get results, how to process, how to do different operations of insert and all, right? So this is about usage of libraries of .NET ADOs. So then let's move to the next topic. Let me give some heads up on this, which is our entity framework. Now it's very important to learn entity framework as soon as we complete ADO, because entity framework actually does much provides much advanced features which internally uses ADO, but it creates much advanced features for us to communicate with database in a disciplined way or in some particular design way. Right? So this entity framework is basically a ORM type of framework, also called as an ORM framework, right? And ORM is nothing but object relational mapping. This is your object relational mapping, right? What is object relational mapping? In market, right? It can be any technology. Take an example of Java Hibernate, or take an example of entity framework N Hibernate, right? Now, any framework which we have, all these frameworks have got introduced a simple and a straightforward concept that whatever table we have in databases, right? Let's take an example of the same table of our students table, right? What it will do is it will actually create each and every class for that table, right? And in that table, if we have multiple, let me just run this query. So in this table, we have multiple columns, right? Now each column will be a separate parameter or a variable in that class, right? Now these classes and parameters together will be in sync with whatever you have in tables. And if there are any relations between tables, then it will also maintain the relation between those classes, right? All these things are maintained at one stretch in the computer, which means we have got introduced all the relations between different tables and how to do that and everything. You just have to call the class. If you know the table name, right, even the class name will be almost same, right? And the parameter, when if you want certain column to retrieve, you can actually do that. And you don't have to write any query in this, right? You can actually build the query directly using your class and parameters, right? So this is how overall framework works. And entity framework completely supports ROR. Again, this framework is a straightforward Microsoft package framework which is provided for database communication. So till now, whatever we have done right now, if you want to retrieve a simple query, what we have done, we used to create a separate class. We used to use all the ADO objects to retrieve, write a query, write an SP, write a command, write a different adapters, get the data, iterate the data, and we used to do so many things, right? But till getting the data right, you are creating classes, connecting to databases using all the ADO code, and till it gets the data, everything will be done by entity framework in one stretch. It will actually get the data, everything in one stretch. Right? So that is about the entity framework and how it actually works. We'll see the internals of entity framework tomorrow. But before that, let's see how we can actually use entity framework in Visual Studio. This is important because entity framework is not an integrated part of Visual Studio, but you have to install it separately, right? So for this, right, we have something called NuGet packages. Now, NuGet packages is a separate framework which we have. This is it's a freeware framework anyways. So which where it contains many libraries or many packages, right? Like you have take an example of entry framework itself, which have got all the entry framework things. Take an example of NHibernate, right? Or different features. If you want to use, right, it won't come with .NET Visual Studio, but you can directly install it from your NuGet packages. It is like your services are ready, but it won't be provided in Visual Studio. But if you want, yes, you can actually download and install, or you can directly download, or you can directly set up it from NuGet packages. Right now, if your NuGet service itself is not there, then what to do? Right. So this NuGet package will be there in your Visual Studio for sure. If that itself is not there, then you can actually download and install directly from Visual Studio. For that, you can go to Tools. You have something called Extensions, right? Now this, now you can see you have a NuGet package manager. Now here you have so many things like controls and everything. You select all. It will actually give you a high level and the main entity tools you have, right? Now here you will have your NuGet package manager, right? Now this is your actual framework which can download and install, upgrade or configure. It will do everything for you, and this is specific to Visual Studio which you are doing. Now I've already installed this. If you want, you can directly select and install. Right. Once you install this, right, then you have here NuGet package manager. Once you have it, let's say in my project, if I want to install my entity framework in my Visual Studio, then what I do is I just do right click on this and you have manage NuGet packages. Now here it will actually get the information online, or if it is already there in which is which is already you have already retrieved the data, then you can get it. But normally it actually gets the data from data. Now you can see the first one itself is entity framework. Now you can see there are many. You can see there are jQuery support, JSON support, right? And we will be using a few in here. There are many very good packages which will be using. We have Unity, right? It is something which is a dependency injection one, right? We are solving. So this is how we get. Now here you can see my entity framework is not installed here, right? And you can install it. But anyways, we are not going to use this project anyways. So let me create a new project. Let me call it as now in this, let me write a setup. Startup function. Manage naked packages. And here you have entity. Now you can see you have a latest version of 6.1 entity framework, right? And this is a completely Microsoft licensed one, right? And you can install. So when you install, you can see that it will download from internet, right? And it will ask for your acceptance. Now it's going to install your packages. Now you can see here. See this path. Now what happens is we normally know that this is the path, right? Actual path we use, right? Where in my path intro CS we have created many projects, right? We have as many projects you can see here. We have many over here. Now in this folders you can see one new folder called packages. Now this will come with your solution. Whenever I am installing this, right, now you can see my installation is done. Let me close it up and let me select some other project and right click and say manage naked packages, right? Now you can see here for this it will again ask me to install. Now if I restart my Visual Studio now, right, now here in my packages, if you go, you can see that entity framework is already installed. Now whenever you take your whenever you build your application for for an exe or for deployment, right, even your packages folder will be attached to that. Why? Because you are actually using entity framework and it needs all the framework libraries whatever you have got, right? So that's the reason why you actually can install and use it, right? Now here you can see you will get something called package config. So this will be created for you, right? Now you can see in this package config we have it, entity framework version being added and targeted frameworks. And this will come based on the based on the framework you selected. You can see I've selected 4.5 while creating this project. Now that's the reason why it actually gave net 4.5, which means support for .NET 4.5 for this. Right? Now this is how your setup, the actual setup of entity framework will be done for the solution. Same way, if you try to install your other things, right? Let's go and see. Let's say JSON.NET, right? If you have a JSON. Anyways, we'll be using this too. If you have a JSON, then again the target folder will be your packages again, right? And it will install a separate, right? That's how as many as you install your these things, then everything will go to package, and you are not actually installing to your machine. You are actually installing it to your directory of your project or your solution, right? So that's how it is going to. So this is how we actually install entity framework. And yeah, we'll see how to actually now start up it. Now entity framework will be very easy to use and to learn also, right? So we'll also create some more tables tomorrow, right? We'll create some tables and some SPs. Even your even your store procedure, right? Whatever, if you have a store procedure, or a function, everything will be retrieved as a separate object through your entity framework. That's what that is one good thing here, right? You can actually create a framework data entity, right? Connecting your databases. You have to provide things. We'll see tomorrow. First thing we'll see how to actually connect to this database, such a database, and how to in future if you want to change the database configuration to different server and all, we'll see how to do that. Right. So this is what is a entity framework, and let's see a few more very important things about entity framework, few theory points on how it actually works internally, and then we'll start with a simple example of retrieving the data.